What's up, friend? Welcome back to Seed and Sparrow Homestead. If this is your first time hanging out, my name's Kelsey. Welcome to my home. We are starting on week 6 of the Three Rivers Pantry Challenge. Somehow January's behind us and we're in February, which is just nuts to me. But if you are new to this challenge, we are using what we have stored in our home in my fridge, freezers, pantry to feed us for the months of January and February. I did give myself a little budget, 25 bucks a week for raw dairy, so milk and cheese, and some fresh fruit. I've got 2 small kiddos, and those items are just really important to me for their health and in their diet. I didn't want to give those up. If it was just me and my husband, like, yeah, those are still important for us too, but we would have just made do. I wouldn't have worried about us so much, but I want my kiddos to have those things, so I do have that budget there. I haven't needed to use it every week, but it is there if I need it. So in this challenge, you make up your own rules, whatever works for you. There is no pressure. Really what I just want to challenge myself to do is figure out new ways to use things. Be resourceful, substitute where needed, make sure nothing's going to waste. And then 2 big things I wanted to figure out is where I'm lacking in my pantry and how long I think we could go with what I have stored. So towards the end of the challenge, I'll kind of give you a wrap up of what I have discovered. But anywho, we are starting on week 6. Today's actually Saturday of week 5, but with my posting schedule, this is just kind of how it works out for me. And I'm making some yummy things today, so I figured I would share. So tomorrow we'll start on week 6, but today we're actually going over to my friend Heather's house. I've shared about her before. She has a YouTube channel, like a link in the description. We haven't seen each other in like 2 months. Both of our families went through long bouts of sickness and they just got back from vacation now. So we're gonna hang out, and she asked if I would bring some soup and some bread. So we're gonna make cheeseburger soup to take, and we're gonna make some focaccia bread to take as well. And then I'm also going to be making some bread for my family to keep here. Grant is making a ruckus, to keep here and hopefully, give us our bread needs for the next like 3 to 4 weeks. I'll just stick it in the freezer. So, and that's what we're working on today. I'm gonna get started with the focaccia bread. Okay, focaccia loaf. So any other time I've made focaccia, it's been like the overnight type. This is a recipe I'm trying for the first time. It's in one of my books here. I'm sure a lot of you might even have this book. It's Joanna Gaines, her Magnolia Table. It's volume 2. This is not an overnight loaf. It has a total of like 2 hours of rise time, which is perfect for my needs today. So we're gonna try it and see how it is. So first step, I have 1 3/4 cup of warm water, and then in here I already had 3 teaspoons of sugar. And we're gonna add the equivalent, I gotta find my measuring spoons. And then we're gonna add the equivalent of one of the little yeast packets you can get at the store. This is active dry yeast. So you need to activate it here in the warm water and the sugar. So it's 2 1/4 teaspoon. Going in there, we'll stir this up, and then we'll allow it to activate for like 5 minutes or so until it gets nice and bubbly. Well, that's doing its thing. We're gonna work on some of my white bread loaves. I'm gonna make a double batch, so that should be 4 loaves of bread. I'll keep 1 out, and then the other 3 will go into the freezer, and then I can pull it out as needed. So that's gonna be a little bit of an undertaking. Let me see if I can find a bowl big enough. For my white sandwich loaf, now I'm doubling. I have 2 tablespoons of sugar in here, and I'm gonna do 3 tablespoons of active dry yeast. We're gonna go back and forth today. That's just honestly how I get things done in the kitchen. If I only did 1 recipe at a time, nothing would be getting done in here. So hopefully that doesn't confuse you too much by like going back and forth between recipes. So 3 tablespoons active dry yeast, and then combined for the 2 recipes, we're gonna do 5 1/2 cups of warm water. And the same thing, we're gonna mix this up and allow this to activate as well. If you have instant yeast on hand, you just don't have to let it activate. All right, stir this guy up, and our other yeast is ready to go. So we'll go back to the focaccia. I'm already realizing I did this focaccia recipe wrong. I was only supposed to do 1/4 cup of the water at first, but I think it'll be fine. But you're only supposed to do 1/4 cup to activate the yeast, and then you add in the rest of the water later. Whatever. Okay, so now we're gonna add flour and salt. And then we're going to add some olive oil. And apparently I wasn't supposed to add all of the sugar either. Oops. Whatever. It is what it is. We're gonna see how this turns out. Don't do as I do. So let me get the flour, the salt, and the olive oil. Okay, so as usual during this challenge, I am doing half whole wheat, half white all-purpose. I have a lot of whole wheat I need to use up. So we need a total of 5 cups. I'm gonna start with 4 and then add as needed. So we'll do 2 and 2 right now. Then we need a tablespoon of salt. Okay, I'm gonna mix this up. Need a half cup of olive oil. I know this isn't the proper measuring device, but it'll be okay. Add that in here slowly. And then it just says the mixture should mix for about 5 minutes and it should form a dough ball and pull away from the sides. All right, here it is after 5 minutes. It feels really nice. Now we're gonna cover it and let it rise for an hour. Here's the yeast from our white bread mixture, and that's ready to go now too. Now we are going to add half cup of, you can use either oil or butter. I know, not proper measuring device, but it's okay. And that's gonna go in, and I always do oil before the honey because then the honey comes right out, and we also need a half cup of honey. Okay, that goes in. And let's see, I had my recipe down here. I do not have this memorized, although I'm surprised I don't for how much I make it. Let's see, 5 teaspoons of salt. Mix this together here quick, and then we're gonna add a lot of flour for a double recipe, about 10 to 12 cups. And again, I'm just gonna use half and half. I do have a whole bunch of wheat berries here, but I'm trying to use up the things that are more perishable first, which is the already ground flour, so that's what I'm prioritizing. 5 cups of whole wheat, and then 5 cups of the all-purpose. So that'll give us 10 cups, and then if we need, we can add in more. I don't ever add in the full amount to a bread recipe, depending on the environment and just how humid, how much moisture there is in the air, how dry it is, can really determine how much flour you need. If you add too much and you don't need it, you're gonna have a really dry loaf of bread. I'm just gonna mix this by hand. I could have done 2 batches in the KitchenAid, but this is just more efficient to me time-wise, so I'm gonna do it this way. I am gonna split it in half though, to knead it, to work it, because I have to knead it for like 8 minutes, and a double batch is just really hard to knead well. You'd have to be like the Hulk, and I am not, so. Okay, I've got all my dough kneaded. Now I'm gonna cover this bowl, and this is also going to rise for 1 hour. Okay, focaccia's been rising for an hour. I've got about 2 tablespoons of olive oil I'm gonna spread around in here. Lay out my dough, push it out, push my fingers into it, create some divots, and then we're gonna let it rise for another hour. Look at this stuff. It's risen. So this is our white loaves of bread. So I'm gonna take this out. This should be enough for like 4 regular loaf pans, but I'm gonna use my Pullman loaf pan here. And the approximate amount that you need have this fill out is about 1,200 grams. So I'm gonna weigh that out. It can vary, just depends on the recipe, how quickly it's gonna rise. You know, there's just other factors to that, but 1,200-ish grams should work. If you need to adjust it, then you just know for next time. 1,200 grams works for me. So I have this sprayed. I also have the lid sprayed so the dough's not sticking to the top. And let's see here. Let's see if this is about enough. I don't know. Ooh, I was close. 11:45. And just stick just a little bit more on there. All right. So now I am gonna take this, make some room here. I'm gonna push it out just a little bit to about the length of this pan. You can see it a little bit on there. Just pushing it out with my fingers to the length of the pan. And it's maybe like 6 or 7 inches in width. And then I'm just gonna take it and I'm gonna roll it up into a log. Trying to get it all the same thickness so that it rises all to the same height. And then my log goes into my pan and pretty perfectly. And then the lid goes on and we're gonna set this over next to the stove top, or my oven, which is on. And we'll let this rise for about an hour, the same as my other loaves. But do not move this lid. Oh, okay, good job. Don't move this lid, because if you do, the dough could come with it and then you're gonna deflate your loaf. Yeah, he says. You're a goofball. You're a goofball. You're a goofball. No. So that took about 1/3 of the dough that I had. It was enough for 4 regular loaf pans. It's fine. I am just going to divide what is left into 2. I think if I divided it into 3, I just have smaller loaves than what I want. Now I'm just gonna have 2 bigger loaves than normal, which is fine. So I'm gonna get these rolled up and put into some loaf pans. All right, all of our loaves now are on their second rise, so in about an hour they will go into the oven. 350 for about 30 to 35 minutes for these loaves and the Pullman loaf. And then the focaccia, let me see here. This should be 425 for about 20 to 25 minutes, and that is just about there. We're gonna drizzle that with a little bit of olive oil and some rosemary on top, and that will be yummy. We gotta get started on our cheeseburger soup. So I'm gonna make a little bit bigger of a batch here. I'm gonna put 2 pounds of ground beef in here, and we're gonna brown this up, drain the grease off, and we're gonna set this to the side then. Here is the focaccia bread after an hour. I'm gonna drizzle this with some olive oil, about another 2 tablespoons worth. And I'm gonna put a few more divots in this. It's not divot-y enough for me. Here, we're gonna sprinkle this with just a little bit of rosemary. If I had fresh, I would use fresh, but I do not, so just a little bit on here. If you want, you could throw some cheese on here. Maybe I'll grab some Parmesan. Parmesan cheese is probably my most favorite cheese. All right, into the oven this goes for about 20 minutes. We'll keep an eye on it. We don't want it to get too brown. I pulled out some celery that I had frozen from the garden. And that's gonna go into this soup. I'm gonna peel these carrots and grate them for the soup. I don't have any onions, so we're gonna use onion powder, and I've got some minced garlic in the fridge. All right, we got most of the meat out of here. I threw in some butter. Now we're gonna saute our veggies. So I'm gonna put carrots in here and some celery. After a few minutes, I'll add in some garlic to get that fragrant. And then we'll keep building our soup. And we We like our cheeseburger soup a little bit thicker, but you don't have to do this part. I'm gonna make a bit of a roux. So 3 tablespoons of flour, thereabouts. Mix that up. I'm gonna slowly add in 5 cups of broth. I have a jar of my home canned potatoes that are going in. I'm just gonna chop these guys up to half the size of what they are. A bit too big for my likings. But if I were to can them any smaller, they'd pretty much turn to mush, so we're not gonna change the size when canning. Okay, I did about a teaspoon of oregano, teaspoon and a half basil. I did teaspoon salt, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, and a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. I'm gonna grab my beef and get that back in here. And we're gonna start adding some cheese. For the cheese, I'm doing 2 cups cheddar. Okay, this is a specialty item, and I used some of my $25 budget to get it because this soup to me just isn't cheeseburger soup without a Velveeta, or this is a Velveeta substitute. It's by a local farm. It's using raw dairy. There's nothing but good stuff in it, which is awesome. So this whole tub is gonna go in here. You can totally make this soup without a Velveeta type cheese. I would just add way more of the cheddar cheese or a combination of whatever cheese you want. But in total, about 4 cups of cheese go into this soup. Now, because of this challenge, the proper thing to do would have been to look up a recipe for Velveeta cheese and make it myself. However, I am really pressed for time today, and this was kind of last minute. I needed something quick for convenience, just to take some of the stress off of myself. So I've got no shame for using some of my budget towards this cheese. And like I said, we could have gone without this cheese, but I just wanted the soup to be extra special. So we purchased some good for you Velveeta cheese. I'm gonna add in like a 1/2 cup or so of sour cream. I have a whole bunch of these containers in my fridge. They last a long time, like months, so I buy a couple at a time. That's why I still have some in there. And that's gonna go in here. It's gonna make it nice and creamy in addition to that Velveeta cheese. If you have heavy cream or some full fat milk on hand, you can add that too if you want it even creamier. But besides that cheat of the Velveeta cheese, everything in here I had in my home. And there we go. There's the soup I'm gonna take tonight to have alongside our focaccia bread. Okay, all of our bread is ready. It should be about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch above the pan before you put it in. This one, like if I try and tug on the lid the littlest bit, it doesn't budge. So I know that the bread has reached the top. So now all of this is gonna get into the oven for about 30 to 35 minutes at 350. Here's the Pullman loaf. Slides right out of the pan. Perfectly square. Makes for perfect sandwiches, especially for my little ones. Sometimes the bigger loaf pans, those pieces of bread are just too big. This is just a nice size for them. I'll cut it into it for you guys. It is quite warm. Like I said before, I never wait until it has fully cooled. See? Beautiful loaf. And this was right about at 1,200 grams of dough. And I let it rise for an hour in the pan. So it's Sunday, we are back from church. I have some time this afternoon. I want to work on prepping some things for breakfast. Thankfully, we still have some of that cheeseburger soup left over. Heather had made a soup as well. So I've got at least a few days worth of lunches ready for Matt. We've got our bread made for this week and probably the following 2 weeks, which is awesome. So now I just want to focus on breakfast. Prior to like a month ago, I would just get up in the morning with my husband and see him off to work, make him breakfast. But he's been after me about just giving my body time to rest and recover. You guys know I'm healing from a lot of stuff right now going on in my body. And I need as much sleep as I can get. I feel so much better when I can get like 8+ hours of sleep in a night, and when I get up in the morning with him, sometimes it's only like 6.5 hours, and that's just not enough for me, and I feel it. And you know, there's a season for everything. I love that time with him in the morning. I also love being able to have some quiet time to myself before the kiddos wake up and after he goes to work, but there's a season for everything. Right now, I need to prioritize my season of healing. I need to give my body that time to rest and recover. So if you haven't noticed, I am making breakfast items that are very easily reheated. Something easy for Matt to grab out of the fridge and quick reheat for himself. So we're gonna continue on with that for now. I have some leftovers from a kids' church snack that I made. I'm in charge of that now. And I basically did a healthier version of like PB&J Uncrustables, and I did them in like fun shapes to go with their kids lesson. But anyways, I have like all of the cutaways from that, so I'm just gonna repurpose that, throw it in a casserole dish, and we're gonna make like a French toast bake. I'm gonna throw some cream cheese in there. I've got a whole bunch in the fridge that needs used. So we're gonna make French toast bake for breakfast this week, and then I'm probably just gonna pull out some sausage and bacon and make that up for him as well. Here are all of the scraps from the healthier version of the Uncrustables that I made. They have some peanut butter and jelly on them, so it'll be interesting, different than most of the French toast bakes that I've made, but we're putting everything to good use and not wasting anything. So getting these guys used up. I have like maybe a 1/4 cup melted butter. I'm gonna add 8 eggs, I think I have here. Where'd all my eggs go? They're rolling around. 8 eggs, like 1 to 1.5 cups of milk. Probably a little bit more than that because I'm gonna add some freeze-dried strawberries and raspberries, and they're gonna soak up some more liquid. So maybe closer to 2 cups for me, but if you're not using freeze-dried, then I would stick to like a 1.5 cups of milk. Sweetener, I'm gonna use maple syrup. You could use honey, sugar, whatever you have on hand. Probably like a 1/2 cup to a 3/4 cup. Depending on how sweet you want it. I'm gonna add some vanilla, pinch of salt, and then I've got, this is like 1/2 block of cream cheese I had in my fridge. I have it cubed. I'm gonna mix that in here. And I think that is all that's gonna go into this. Get it into the oven and we will have breakfast for the week. Okay, this will go in at 350 for about an hour. We just want to make sure all the eggs are cooked and everything is set. Here's the French toast bake. All finished. Some of the raspberries got a little bit dark, but that's okay. I'm sure it'll still taste just fine. Now I'm just gonna get the bacon and the sausage ready, and then my work for today will be done. We are on to Monday, and for breakfast and lunch today, we just did some leftovers from the weekend, the things I had made yesterday, and the kids for lunch had like a snack plate. We just throw some leftovers on there and like meats, cheese, fruit, that sort of stuff. We do snack plates a lot around here, which is why I don't really show a whole lot of what I do for the kids for lunch, because it's not necessarily like a meal. They just have a well-rounded plate of all the food groups, and that's what we do. So all I'm really focusing on today is dinner, and we're gonna make a fun little snack slash treat. So for dinner, we're gonna do a meat pie. This is something that my husband grew up with. His grandmother would make it all of the time, and I don't really know if it has an actual name. I just know it by meat pie around here. It does have a crust on the bottom and the top, and it's literally just filled with different types of meat and some potatoes. And you like thicken it all up and it, you know, sticks together. It's really good. It is. So I'm gonna do, I think, some venison, ground venison in there, and I'm gonna do some ground beef, but I'm also gonna do some ground pork sausage that is maple flavored. I'm gonna throw in some apple in there as well, and then it's a lot of like savory type seasonings in it, but I like to put in a little bit of cinnamon and nutmeg too. It just gives it a different flair. So we're gonna get to work on the pie crust. For this pie crust recipe, a single recipe, which would make 2 crusts, is 2.5 cups of flour, a cup of butter. I'm gonna cube this up to make it a bit easier to combine, and then a 1/2 teaspoon of salt and just a tablespoon at a time of water until it comes together. I am gonna do a batch and a half because I want this for dinner tonight, and I want the top and the bottom crust for the meat pie, but then I want to make some hand pies for a fun little treat for the kids and my husband. I have a whole bunch of jams and jellies downstairs to choose from that need to start getting used, so we'll make a fun little hand pie treat for them tonight. I'm assuming this is just like common knowledge, but just in case someone doesn't know this, the way I never run out of butter and how I'm having butter this whole challenge is I buy it in bulk and I freeze it. You can freeze butter if you didn't know that. So yeah, I'll just go to my stores in the freezer and pull out some to have in the fridge for the week. We go through a lot of butter, so I like to have a whole bunch on hand. I'm just getting the butter mixed in here a little bit. Usually I'd put this in a food processor. It's not the greatest practice to use your hands because of the warmth from your hands. You want there to be nice bits of butter in throughout this, so you get that flaky end result, but I was being impatient today and the pastry cutter wasn't cutting it. I didn't feel like pulling out the food processor, so hands it is. Okay, we're gonna stick this and the rest of the dough into the fridge while we work on the filling. Okay, pound of ground beef. It's gonna go in there. Pound of ground venison as well. You can use whatever meats you want for this though. I just really wouldn't use chicken. I've never tried that. And then I have a pound of our maple pork sausage. So how Matt's grandma used to make it, I'm pretty sure she just did ground beef, and then one of the local butchers always had an apple sausage. I believe it was just it might have been pork and beef, but I'm not totally positive, honestly. And it had like cinnamon, nutmeg in it, and some apples as well. We don't buy that anymore. I just don't love the quality of it, so I'm making do and kind of making my own. So I'm gonna use my pork sausage and then just add some apples and add some of those spices to kind of get the same end result that she would have gotten. So at this point, Matt's grandma would have thrown in some diced onions and probably some minced garlic and cook that alongside with the meat. I don't have any of those, so I'm gonna brown this meat up. I'm gonna drain off the grease. I don't want that in the pie. And then we'll add some seasoning as well as some chopped apples to soften up in here. For the seasoning, I'll probably do some thyme and sage, onion powder, garlic powder, and then of course salt and pepper. And then we'll also do a little bit of nutmeg. Whoops, making a mess. Some nutmeg and cinnamon as well. And then the other thing is some potatoes. I am just gonna pull out a jar of my canned potatoes and use those. You can keep them in here whole. I like to kind of half mash and leave some of them, you know, some bigger pieces. That is one of the ways, like, we glue all this together for the pie, just to hold everything together nicely. Meat has been browned. I poured off grease. Now I'm gonna throw in one diced apple. Allow that to soften. I'm gonna gather all my spices. I'm gonna take out some of this. I don't need all of this for my pie. I'm gonna eat just some of this filling. I'll probably sprinkle some like Parmesan cheese on top of it, and that will be my dinner. Some of my canned potatoes here. I didn't use a whole quart jar. Saved a few. I'll just make them alongside breakfast. For myself tomorrow morning, I can do potatoes in moderation. So I didn't want to have them tonight and then tomorrow morning as well. So I'm gonna just kind of roughly mash these up here. And I'm gonna grab some flour. I'm gonna do about a heaping tablespoon of flour. Stir that all up, and then we'll slowly add in a half cup of beef broth. Okay, I've got my top pie crust rolled out. I'm going to set that to the side. We're going to grab our meat and potato filling and get it in here. Okay, I'm just going to pack this down in here. We're going to get our top crust laid out over the top. Got a little slit here in the center. Okay, this is gonna go into a 425-degree oven for about 40 to 45 minutes. I served this up with some applesauce and some of my canned pickled beets. With the rest of the pie dough, I rolled that out and I cut out some heart shapes for some mini hand pies. And I just chose one of my many jams from down in the pantry. This is a strawberry and apple jam, which is lovely. Spooned that in here, making sure to leave enough room around the edges to seal the top crust. Took some water and brushed it around the edges so that the two crusts would seal together. I crimped it with a fork, and then I took a knife, made a little bit of a slit for some venting. Mixed up 1 egg, a little bit of water for an egg wash, brushed that on here, and then these went into a 350-degree oven for about 20 minutes.
Here they are, all finished. They were thoroughly enjoyed. They remind me kind of a Pop-Tart. You could use any of your jams and jellies up in these. Throw on some homemade icing, some sprinkles. This would be a fun little treat for Valentine's Day. We are on to Tuesday. The kids had been asking for some sort of bar, and since I'm not purchasing those things at the store, I decided to make my own. I've made lots of granola bars in the past, but they always seem to be a little bit different. I just kind of throw things together. So this time I did a cup of peanut butter, a half cup of maple syrup, and I did a teaspoon of vanilla and some Chinese 5-spice, maybe like a 1/4 teaspoon. Get that heated, wait until it starts to bubble and everything is combined, and then I added in 2.5 cups of sprouted oats. Mix that together well, and then I spread that out into a parchment-lined pan. And then just for a fun little treat on top, we sprinkled some white chocolate chips. This went into the freezer until it was set, and these did not last long at all. They were devoured in a little over a day. There's so many different variations you can make of these, and they'll last on the counter for like 3 days, or you could keep them in the fridge for about a week. Tuesday's dinner was an Instant Pot meal. I have some butter in my Instant Pot on the saute setting, and I threw in about 4 chicken breasts cubed, and I got them browned on every side. Once browned, we'll add in 3.5 cups of chicken broth and some seasonings. I just did some salt and pepper and some onion powder. You could add anything you really want, whatever flavor profile you'd like to give it. It's pretty customizable. And then I did 1.5 cups of jasmine rice. That's my preferred rice. We love the flavor of that. And then the lid went on, and this we put on manual on high for about 8 minutes. Once this was finished pressure cooking, I added about 1 cup of Parmesan cheese and stirred that in while it was still hot. This is a very simple meal. It's very quick and easy to put together. It's also a very beige meal. Like, it might not look the most appealing, but I promise you it is so good. And it's one of those like just feel good comfort foods. Something about it is just so satisfying, and it makes you feel good.
Okay, it is now Wednesday, and I had a little bit of an eventful day. It's actually like pretty late. It's 4 o'clock. I'm just getting started on dinner now. My mom was here for the day with my kids. I had to get some dental work done. So if my face looks funny or if my lips aren't moving the right way, it's because they're still slightly numb. Just how I wanted to spend my day, but it is what it is. Years of breastfeeding and pregnancy and all of my gut issues have done a number on my teeth, so we had to go get some of that worked out. But anyways, I wanted to tell you, my mom was here today. She was eating some of the leftovers in the fridge. She said the meat pie was one of the best things I've ever made, so that's high praise coming from my mom. My mom she's picky with her food, so she loved that one. So make that one if you make any of the recipes in this video. And also, this is the last piece of this granola bar. Divine. So good. And I just dropped a piece of it on the floor. Really, really yummy. And goodness, you could customize that in so many different ways. So much better for you than the ones in the store. And it took like 5 minutes total. You can make a whole bunch of it, keep it in the fridge or even the freezer. So anyways, all that to say, I'm working on dinner now. I had a pork loin thawing, so we're gonna make that tonight for dinner, and I think I'm gonna use up some of my jelly downstairs. I'm gonna go, I don't know which one I want to use on that, but I'm gonna use it as a glaze, and we're just gonna roast that. And then I think for sides, I want to get some more veggies in my kids tonight. So we might make some carrot fries, and then I might make, I still have a lot of potatoes I need to use. They're going soft. So maybe some roasted potatoes, maybe some crispy Parmesan potatoes. Maybe we'll do that. So I need to get started. I chose, if it'll focus on it, This jam. It's not a jelly, it's a jam, but I have like 8 jars of it and I'm trying to figure out a way to use it. It's basil mint plum jam, if you didn't catch that. It's a Pomona's pectin recipe if you're interested in it. And I didn't really put 2 and 2 together. It sounds like something you'd put like on a rack of lamb or lamb in some form. We're gonna try it on pork because I need to use it in some way. If you have any other ideas for this specific type of jam, basil mint plum jam, let me know. I think it should be okay on this. I'm gonna open it and smell it. That's interesting. It's very minty. Okay, I'm gonna taste a little bit because I don't want to like totally ruin this pork loin. No, okay, I think we'll be okay. It honestly tastes like cranberry sauce, a really tart cranberry sauce because these plums were tart. Really tart cranberry sauce with a hint of mint. I think we'll be okay. We're gonna try it. Okay, pork loin is in the dish. Sure I have enough here so I'm not double dipping. And I am, oh come on here. I am going to just slather this on here. Okay, that's what we're working with. Hopefully this turns out good. I'll apply some more jam a little bit later on. This is gonna go into an oven 350 degrees for like 30 minutes and we'll check it. See if it needs some more time. So for these carrot fries, I'm just peeling up some carrots. I'm gonna slice them into fries. And then I'll make these just like I make some seasoned French fries. I'm gonna douse them in oil. And then I will sprinkle some paprika, some salt and pepper. You can do whatever spices you want. Those are the ones we prefer. And I'll lay them out on a baking sheet. Make sure there's lots of space so they get nice and crispy. And these will roast at 400 degrees, probably for 20-ish minutes, just until, you know, they're as soft as you want them. My kids don't like when they're too mushy. So that will be one side. Okay, I went through and I found some of the smaller potatoes, sliced them in half. We're gonna add a little bit, like 2 tablespoons of oil. I'm gonna grab some melted butter. It's not melted, but it's pretty darn soft, so that'll be just fine. Maybe like 2 tablespoons of that. Salt, pepper. I'm gonna add a little bit of Parmesan cheese to that as well. We're gonna mix these all up. All right, over here I've got baking sheet lined with parchment. I'm gonna sprinkle some Parmesan cheese on it. I'm gonna try and keep it to one side because I don't think I'll need the whole tray and I don't wanna waste it. Just a thin coating of that, and then we're gonna lay these potatoes cut side down on top of this.
These will get roasted in the oven at about 400 degrees for around 30 minutes or until they are fork tender and all of the cheese is nice and crispy. These are so yummy and very simple to put together. So there is the last meal I will be sharing with you today. I'm getting it plated up now. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed spending some time in the kitchen. Please don't forget to like this video and share and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I would love for you to be a part of the community here. I appreciate you all so much. You have a blessed week and I will see you next time. You take care.